Have you ever looked at one of those globes that has 3D texture on it so you can feel the different bumps and ridges and all the mountains and valleys on each continent? Well, did you know that there's topography at the bottom of the ocean just like there is on land? For the longest time, scientists believed that the bottom of the oceans were just vast plains of mud. But someone named Marie Tharp completely changed that. Well, today on the homepage of Google, the Google Doodle is dedicated to Marie Tharp. And I had the chance to be a part of this project alongside two other women in science where we narrated an awesome interactive video all about Marie's story. Marie Tharp was a geologist and cartographer in the 40s and 50s who mapped the ocean floors by hand, using data collected by her colleagues in research vessels at sea. Her maps ultimately led to the wide acceptance of the theory of plate tectonics, the idea that the Earth's crust is split up into plates, and those plates move around the Earth because of mechanisms in the upper mantle. This had been very controversial and debated in the scientific community for decades prior to this. I studied geology in college, just like Marie, but before I discovered geology as something that I could learn about and have a career in, I thought that I could never be a scientist. In high school, I had no interest in my science classes whatsoever, and when it was time to pick my major in college, I always said to myself, well, at least I know it's not going to be a science. And look at me now with a geology degree, constantly telling people how cool and important earth science is. One of the main things that led to this belief was that I wasn't smart enough or that I couldn't handle the work to be a scientist. But this was because I had a completely skewed view of what a scientist really is. Now I know that to be a good scientist, you don't need to be the smartest person in the room. You just have to be curious and ask lots of questions. Every scientist I've met is just so interested and passionate and curious about what they're studying. And to me, that's so much more important than being super smart. In the past, and even sometimes still, I struggle with believing that I'm smart enough, that I'm experienced enough, or just enough to do the things that I want to do. But hearing stories like Marie's really inspire me to just keep going and trying things and sharing my ideas with the world, even when it's scary. When I was in college getting my geology degree, my friend and I went to this book sale where there was this whole warehouse of used books, and we immediately went to the vintage science book section and cleared out every single vintage geology book we could find. Among those was this book from 1964, and if you go and read through it, there is barely any mention of seafloor spreading or continental drift, and if it is mentioned, it's kind of just regarded as this out there idea that has no real proof. But in this book from just 18 years later, that my parents had in middle school, you open it and the first thing that you see is the Tharp-Hazen map of the ocean floor. Can you imagine your work being the reason why textbooks are rewritten? Among that stack of vintage geology books that I brought home that night, there was also a folded up map from a National Geographic magazine of the ocean floor. This was the map that was published by National Geographic using Bruce and Marie's maps. And I didn't really know much about Marie's work at this point, but I got home and I unfolded that map and I hung it right on my wall. And for the next 2 years of me finishing my geology degree, I would look at that map when I was up late, studying for a difficult test or worrying that I wasn't doing good in my classes. And I would see that map and look at all that texture and detail and be reminded of my own curiosity and passion for the Earth and how our planet works. The same curiosity and wonder that I had as a little kid who was stuffing pebbles in her pockets from the driveway. As a woman in STEM, I am very inspired by Marie's story because she was a woman in earth science in the 40s and 50s when that was almost completely unheard of. She wasn't even allowed on the research vessels with her colleagues because the men considered it bad luck to have women on board. And when she showed her ideas to her colleague Bruce, he dismissed it as girl talk. It must have been extremely isolating for Marie to have her work dismissed by her own colleagues. Yet she still kept her passion and creativity and curiosity alive. leading her to make one of the biggest discoveries in the study of our planet. I can personally relate to some of these difficulties of being a woman in a science field. When I graduated with my geology degree, I went and worked in the construction industry for a short time. And in this short time, I was the only woman in most rooms or most job sites that I was on. And this doesn't mean that I didn't work with or meet some really great people, but it does mean that a lot of the time I did feel pretty isolated. And this is not uncommon for this field, and it is something that is slowly changing, but needs to change a lot more. Science needs people from all types of backgrounds in order to be successful. I am so grateful to be one of the voices that tells you about Marie's story and her work, alongside two wonderful women in earth science. Cate Larsen, aka the Groovy Geologist, has gotten thousands of people interested in geology through her live lessons and her podcast and her hilarious TikToks. And Dr. Tiara Moore, who is the founder and CEO of Black in Marine Science, which is a nonprofit that highlights and amplifies Black voices in marine science. It was such a great experience working on this project with the team at Google, and I am really excited to show it to you. So if you haven't gotten a chance yet, go to the Google homepage and click on the doodle and watch the interactive video and share it with everyone you know and learn all about Marie and her story.